Hi, and welcome to the Pigskin postgame podcast. Say that 3 times fast. I'm Joe Cortez. I'm joined by Jim Silva, Ron Agostini, and the venerable Brian VanderBeek.
He's more venerable than I am.
That's true.
I'm real venerable.
You are real venerable. You're max venerable.
Max venerable. There you go, yeah.
So tonight was the opening night of the 2014 football season, week 0. I still don't quite get that concept, but let's start with Brian over there. Brian was at our kind of our game of the week.
Was it?
The game we thought was going to be a real wing dinger.
And it was a real wing dinger.
Patterson versus Escalon up in Escalon.
Yeah, I was at Inglefield in Escalon, and Patterson beats Escalon 47-34 in a game that was every bit as wild as the final score would indicate. Patterson with 474 yards of offense, Escalon with 409, but the real difference here was just Patterson's playmakers. Demario Hammonds, Michael Lawson, and then a surprise playmaker, Antonio Vasquez, the backup tailback. Hammonds, 5 receptions for 126 yards and 2 scores. He returns a punt, 43 yards for a touchdown. Has an interception, one of 3 turnovers by Escalon tonight. That was the real difference in this game. Michael Lawson carries 13 times for 202 yards and 3 touchdowns. And he gets a cramp midway through the third quarter. So for about 3 or 4 series, the other senior, Antonio Vasquez, who's about 5'7", 130, you can't see him. It didn't help that Escalon's grass is about 6 inches tall, so you couldn't see him. Couldn't see him to the knee, and then he just disappears in there. He ends up carrying 8 times for 93 yards in a score. So Patterson runs for 320, Escalon runs for 320. They got 206 yards on 33 carries from fullback Wesley Dick, who was just rolling over people tonight. This was a game, and this was a real good game. Escalon led 14-12. Patterson scores the last 3 touchdowns before the half to lead 26-14. Escalon answers on their first drive of the third quarter to make it 26-21, and then stops Patterson twice. They had 2 chances with the ball to take the lead. Both of them end up in turnovers. Lawson then caps a long drive with a touchdown run of 7 yards, and after that point, Escalon never again had the ball with a chance to go ahead. So the final score, Patterson 47, Escalon 34 in a game that took forever.
What did I tell you about Hammonds the other day during Stanislaus Football Weekly?
Yeah, he said exactly that. He's
dynamic.
He's dynamic, a contender for Player of the Year, and the key is getting him touches. Well, he got 5 touches on offense, once on special teams, and once on defense. And Nick Marchi, the Patterson coach, I asked him after the game, how do you get these guys touches? He says, the good thing is that they're not selfish. Well, not selfish right now, but these guys are going to start putting up numbers. They're going to want the ball, and he's going to have to spread it around.
How'd my guy Damian Paolo look?
He looked good. He didn't force anything. I was surprised. I only saw him play a couple times before. He unleashed a ball tonight that must have gone 60, 65 yards in the air. The kid's got a cannon.
He's strong boy.
And once you get Hammonds out there on man-to-man coverage, it just doesn't matter. He's going to leap over everybody. He's a special kid.
Patterson and Escalon have played great games over the years, and I guess this was another one, huh?
Well, it's funny. I get to Inglefield, and Mark Lorero is one of the first guys I see, and I look out in the field, and the field's about this tall. And I go, Mark, I said, and we're kind of expecting this. He goes, no, Beek. No, Beek, we mowed this on Monday. And then, they mowed it on Monday, but they used the 4-inch clearance on the mower. And that's what he said. Yeah, well, we used a 4-inch clearance. We mowed it on Monday. Well, yeah, it's this tall now, and but that's the home field advantage. And when you have a team with the skill players and the speed of Patterson, why not?
You're not saying they didn't cut the grass on purpose.
I'm saying that it was scheduled to be cut on Monday, and that's when they cut it to a 4-inch length.
To 4-inch.
To USG.
You'd have to wedge out of that stuff.
I said, I was telling Mark that I would call this U.S. Open rough, but that would be an insult to golf.
High stuff.
I was at a wild one tonight. I was over at Turlock High School, Joe Debley Field. Pittman hosted Downey. Downey jumps out to a 26-7 lead, and then blows it. Pittman comes roaring back. Jeremy Plow told me, Downey coach Jeremy Plow told me that they just kind of got to scoreboard watching for about a minute in the third quarter, and they were never able to regain the momentum. And
Just some quick touchdowns there by Pittman.
yeah, Pittman had they had a big a 59-yard strike from Matt Carrig to Dominic Bravo, and then they hooked up a couple of minutes later for a 35-yard strike. P.J. Wilson nearly led the Knights back. He had a couple of minutes to play with in the fourth quarter there, and nearly he led them to a score, and then they went for the onside kick and just couldn't get it. But it was a wild one.
Sounds like a good one.
And then Jim was at another CCC MMC affair.
That's
Tell
right.
us about that one.
That was another good game. This was actually the first game I've covered in
18 years.
about 18 years. So,
We broke Jim into it.
a lot of people at the game were asking me, "Who are you? Where are you from?" But I've been at the Bee for all that entire time, just haven't covered a game.
He's
But
the
it was
running columnist.
It was
That's
fun.
right.
It was a fun game to be at. A good back and forth game. Both teams, I think, take a lot out of the game. I talked to Enoch's coach James Stacy after the game. Pretty upbeat. I asked him about last year and how the first game this year compared to last year. Last year, obviously, was a difficult time for the team. This year, much more upbeat. You could tell that they were happier to be out on the field this year. And so a lot of good takeaways for Enoch. Sean Munoz looked good, looked sharp. Struggled a little bit early, threw 2 picks, but one was deflected. It wasn't really his fault. A lot of drop passes tonight. A lot of fumbles for Enoch and some mistakes that they could have won the game had they not made. Big takeaway for me was Eddie Alderson, number 2. He's a junior running back. Small, 5'6", 165, but really quick and really elusive. So I was impressed. I was impressed with the 1-2 punch they have with McCoy Kent and Alderson. Nice backfield for Enoch, so I was impressed. Turlock, they have Bubba Moreno, their starting quarterback. He was a running back last year. He ran for 169 yards. He passed for another 165, I think.
What did Munoz pass for? Do you have that?
Munoz passed for 169. He kind of struggled, but the running game worked well, so they really didn't need to do too much. But Bubba Moreno looked good for Turlock. They have a big game coming up next week against Oakdale, and Coach James Peterson says they're going to need to reduce the amount of mistakes.
What was that score?
It was 25-20 for Turlock.
Wow.
My final, I forgot to mention, was 36-33 Pittman.
Jim, you run marathons. Come on, tonight was a snap for you, right?
It was fun. It was fun. What about your game? How'd you do?
I was at the Corral in Oakdale tonight for Oakdale Sonora, the 97th meeting between Oakdale and Sonora.
Did you have the tri-tip?
I would have had the tri-tip, but I was a little bit cheap tonight. It cost $8.50.
Oh,
Now you guys are the food guys.
that's
That
limited
would have
last-
stopped you too, maybe.
I think it was 8 last year and 7 the year before
Yeah.
that, if I remember right.
How'd Oakdale look?
The
Oakdale,
tri-tip was no.
the brat was fine. Okay, but I didn't try the tri-tip tonight. Oakdale won the game 28-14. They led 28-0. Adam Olson, the Oakdale quarterback, couple play action passes through over the top to Logan Hall for 37 yards. Brock Whiting for 33 yards. The first of 3 touchdowns for Whiting. It looked like it was going to be a rout. It was 28-0 early in the second half. And then Sonora made a run. They went to a no-huddle offense, and they got back into the game with some long drives engineered by the quarterback, Billy Kurlick, who passed for 255 yards. And they almost got back into the game. It was a competitive game. I think both teams could take away a little something from the game. Oakdale, they won the game after starting 0-2 last year, so that was a big deal for them to win the first one. And Sonora, that they hung around and stayed in the ball game. So it looks like Sonora will be able to score some points this year. My final takeaway from the game is that tonight was one of the most gorgeous sunsets I've seen in a long time for a football game. If you watch Brian VanderBeek's video from Escalon, you see that sunset, and I saw it too from the press box in Oakdale. Pretty impressive way to start the season.
Well, that'll about do it for our first Pigskin post-game podcast. That's 2. I got to say it one more time. Thanks for joining us, and be sure to join us again next week.